Hey everyone, how's it going? I just wanted to chat about this notion of wealth and how people who are making $40,000 a year can actually leverage that to, make a six-figure salary annually. A lot of my clients, at least, they generally have incomes with their daily jobs where they make 40 or sometimes less and sometimes a little bit more money than that, but they leverage that with investments and things like that to get an actual overall salary in the six figures. Now, I just kind of wanted to chat about this whole wealth thing right off the bat. Just so we can kind of understand where I'm going to go with this conversation. So what a lot of people will do, for example, is they'll buy a house, right? Now they'll buy this property, they'll put $50,000 down on this property. Let's say it's worth $500,000. Okay, these are just arbitrary numbers. So they put 10% of that down, right? And now what they're doing is they're renting this out to make $2,000 a month. Okay. Now a lot of people will stop here. Okay, a lot of people will say, okay, I've got this rental property, it's paying for the mortgage, maybe at the end of the day I'm making a few $100 a month, but ultimately that shouldn't even be the goal. The goal should just be, how can I increase my wealth? So if I'm going for wealth, as long as I'm making my mortgage payment or more, yes, today I'm not gaining any cash, but cash is actually an interesting thing. I'm actually not a big fan of carrying a lot of cash. Cash won't make you money, okay? Generally speaking. What do I mean by that? If I have $50,000 in the bank, I can put that in the bank in a savings account or, a low risk investment and maybe make 3%, right? So I'm making $1,500 a year roughly, let's call it. I know there's a lot of compounding and all that jazz, but call it $1,500 a year. But if I do this method and I put the $50,000 into a house and I just rent it out, yes, and let's say my mortgage is $2,000 a month, I'm not making any profit today, but my overall wealth is increasing because now I'm owning more and more and more of this house, right? I only own 10%, and after a year, I own 12 or 13%, and eventually I'm going to own this whole house, and then when I sell it, I'm going to get $500,000 cash. So in 10 years, I'll be worth a lot more money. Okay, that's kind of the elementary step to wealth. So that's why I'm not a fan of cash. There's always something you can do with your cash. Okay, and I'm going to chat about that in a second. But where this example should stop is not here. A lot of people will go and they'll say, okay, I have my one house, I've got my rental property, I've got some income coming in. Where there's people that are a little bit smarter will continue to leverage this even further. So they'll refinance another house, okay? So they'll get another house, and again, they don't have much for income coming in, right? But they'll go to the bank and they'll say, hey, I've got a renter agreed to 2 years, I've got $50,000 in equity on this house, and they'd refinance it. So the bank would actually let them refinance that at an interest rate, so it's going to cost them money, and maybe they'll let them have $40,000 of that $50,000, right? Depends on where we are, the lending and stuff. So now they've got $40,000 here. They just refinance, right? So they said to the bank, hey, you can hold my house essentially, but I just want some cash right now to put on another house. And then they put their own $10K. So they're in this one for $50,000, right? And now they're renting this out, right? $50K, and I'm putting that in red because that's kind of like a negative because they just took money out of something else. And now they've got $2,000 of rent coming in here, right? And maybe they're just breaking even. But as they do this and they kind of compound this, they can invest in more and more properties. And this is how a lot of these property agents do it. They can invest in more and more properties and they're increasing their wealth. Yes, their cash currently is not increasing, okay? But they're making a lot more than a 3% return annually, right? Their wealth is essentially going up by the value of their mortgage each month. So if they do this with 2 properties, they're gaining $4,000 a month in value, in wealth. They don't get that today. Maybe in 10 or 15 years, they cash that out. Plus, if the property value goes up and down, that obviously fluctuates. But that's just the premise of wealth. And that's kind of what I wanted to chat about. So I hope that you understand that. Now I want to talk about this whole cash thing a little bit further because like I said, a lot of my clients don't have large incomes, right? They maybe, make, let's say $40,000 a year. I'd say that's my general median for a lot of my major clients. They may make $40K a year, household income, things like that, but they're left with, maybe about $8,000, and this is honestly a realistic number, maybe about $8,000 a year in kind of extra cash. So they can either go and party, they can either save that, or they can start a venture, right? Now, this is what I always recommend. I rarely have cash in my bank accounts. I have a livable amount, obviously, but I don't like to carry cash because cash, again, like I'm saying, is not really valuable to me, right? If I had $100,000 in the bank, right, and I was making 3%, right, 0.03, I'm literally gaining, and again, compounding aside, My next year, I'm worth $103,000 essentially, right? So yes, it's a nice secure way of increasing my wealth, but $3,000 to me is not a game changer. That's not going to change my life, right? I'm young. A gain in $3,000, I probably won't even notice, right? That's a couple nights in Vegas, literally. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my mindset with this. So instead of, saying I'm going to put this in the bank, I'll take my money and I'll put it towards valuable projects. Now, $100,000 is obviously a lot of money. You can put that towards a house. You can do real estate and things like that. But this is where I wanted to go with this conversation. The reason that I love low wealth now, or low spare money to increase your wealth, is because of the internet. The internet has changed everything. It's given everyone essentially an ability to take this $8,000 and turn it into something a lot more. And it doesn't have to be $8,000 a day. A lot of my clients, we literally start with budgets of $1,000. Now I know that sounds like a lot. I hate to pull the whole Gary Vaynerchuk kind of thing, and I'm not a huge fan of him, but you guys can come up with $1,000 generally speaking, right? We can sell things. We can sell our goods. We can lower our standard of life temporarily to get $1,000 together, right? It doesn't seem like, or it seems like a lot of money to some people, but realistically, guys, if you dedicated, a month or 2 months to gaining $1,000, we can do it. So this $1,000 online, okay, and this is why I love the online world, it gives the chance to people who want to put in sweat equity, who want to work, the chance to actually leverage this into something a lot bigger, okay, a lot bigger. Now, what's a lot bigger? Is that 10 times? Is that 20 times? Is that 30 times? Who knows what that number is? And that's the beauty of the internet, because we're essentially buying a lottery ticket, right? But the lottery ticket, generally speaking, your upside is, maybe a decimal of a percentage chance that you win. If you're at a hockey game or a 50-50, maybe it's slightly more. Maybe you have like a 0.5% chance of winning. But with an online business, we're actually growing wealth. You're doing the same thing as the house example, because yes, I'm building an online store, right? I'm building an online store. How much money is this worth, right? Yes, of course it's worth my whatever $15 or $20 a month that I have to pay to do this, but I'm also putting equity into that because I'm putting hours of work into building a store. So now this is worth money, right? I'm building up a social media platform, right? I'm just gonna put F for Facebook, right? I'm building up a social media platform. These are things that can be sold for money. So all that time I'm putting into building a nice Facebook channel or a YouTube channel or an Instagram channel, those are all worth money, right? Maybe it's only $100, maybe it's $200, but that's worth something, right? So it's not like you're losing any of this money. So now we're looking at this $1,000 and we're like, okay, maybe I can sell the store realistically, store without sales, maybe I can sell it for $100. Okay, maybe I can sell my Facebook page for, $75, my Instagram page for $50, my, blah, 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 blah. My mailing list, right? My email list. That's supposed to be an envelope there. That's a horrible envelope. Right, my mailing list, right? Maybe that's worth $50. And these are the things is I'm investing, right? I'm putting money into ads. I'm putting money into things like that. Because this $1,000 isn't just going to building a store, right? Realistically, this is costing me, let's say $25 plus the amount of time that I have to learn. But a lot of you guys who want to get into an online business, I hate to say it, something that prevents you guys is laziness, right? There's tons of information on the internet. If you guys check out my pages, you guys can learn how to do a ton of this stuff for free. So this just comes down to laziness that you're not doing it, right? You have a small amount of money that you're willing to invest. Maybe you're a student and you're taking it out of your party fund, or maybe you're midlife and it's coming out of your leisure time. Maybe you're not going to take a holiday that year. Something as simple as that. Now I can take this money and leverage it, build these things, so I'm not really coming out net negative, right? Facebook page cost me $0. Email list, $0 until you have 5,000 addresses on MailChimp. So this isn't costing you money, right? And there's so many pieces to this. Your brand, right? I'm just gonna put the word brand here. That can be worth a ton of money or a little bit of money. Maybe just someone likes your logo and they wanna start, someone who has all this, you sell it to them for $300, $400 because it wasn't working out for you. So now my investment's even less, right? So this brand is also $0. This is all sweat equity, okay? A lot of you guys have a lot of time on your hands and maybe it's just laziness. Maybe you wanna watch Netflix. Maybe you wanna do something else. It's ultimately comes down to, it's laziness. It is. That's the reason that people don't get into this space, because they don't think about it in terms of this $1,000. So I'm gonna tell you about my first example. When I was a student, okay, this is to put this into realistic terms for you guys. So when I was a student, we started out, and then this is all assuming no sales, okay? These things I was putting here, these are all assuming no sales, okay? With sales, of course, that exponentially grows everything. If you have a store that's getting, even $1,000 a month in sales, which is $100 profit, let's call it, your Facebook page is worth more, your Instagram's worth more, your mailing list is worth more, all of that stuff goes up. So my example, and I've told a lot of you guys about this, when I was in university, so I was paying my tuition, okay, but I was working my bag off, I wasn't partying, I wasn't doing any of that, I was saving a ton of money, right? So for around 10,000 Canadian, so call it about 7,000 US, okay, 7,000 USD, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Before I even continue here, times have changed on the internet. This I could have done for about $1,000, $2,000 today. But back then, you couldn't. There wasn't as many drop shipping and implementations in place. There wasn't all these things. So this actually needed to be a lot more money. So before you guys go out there and say, oh, he had $7,000, he was a privileged kid, spoiled. No, I paid for everything. I worked my bag off. I paid for university. There's things like student loans. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to because I was saving since I was 14. But regardless, I turned this money into something. I ended up buying product with it, okay? I ended up buying these products with it, building an online store, right? I built an online store, Facebook, social media. I'm just going to put F though for Facebook, brutal F, right? I had that mailing list. I did all of these things, but then I also got sales, okay? So this is ultimately where I made my profits initially, right? This is where I had an awesome time living. So I was making sales off of this $7,000, slowly taking a dent out of this $7,000, right? Making my losses eventually positive, so I was making more money than I invested into this. And it was great, right? We had a six-figure salary as a university student. It was amazing. But where this huge payday came into play is not that, right? Yes, 6 figures a year is amazing. I'm pumped. I was very, very happy to do that. But eventually when I grow all this stuff, it's all temporary, right? And we went and we sold this, right? We had a broker from New York, and we went and sold our business. And that was where our payday is, right? So it's the same thing with that house example. We buy these houses. It doesn't increase my cash flows today. I'm not making more money today necessarily, but my wealth is increasing. I was fortunate enough to do this with an online store where I was actually making money, and a lot of you guys will too, right? And that's why I love the online world, because it's kind of a fine balance. I need cash today, right? This is why my clientele that maybe make $40,000, $50,000 a year, they work their job, they come home and they work on this. This is a fun project. It's something that they love doing. So they take this and they turn this into this business, and they actually also get a positive return out of it with a long-term goal of maybe selling the business to make a huge cash surplus. So same thing, right? I've got my money to invest in houses. I buy a house, I refinance the house. I've got some wealth increasing, right? I'm always growing these. These are increasing in value every single day that they're in operation. They're increasing in value. Maybe I'm writing a blog. All of that content is worth money. How much? We don't really know at the time. There's no set value, right? So these are my houses. And then, when the mortgages are paid off or I go to sell those houses, that's when I cash in and I actually make that money. So it's different. If you have a lot of money and you're sitting at home right now, go into real estate, go into one of those things, right? You don't need this cash aspect today. This is the big difference between the online world. If you don't need this big cash aspect today, right? So you're making enough money, you've got some money you can invest, and you don't need to increase your cash today, well, then maybe an online industry is not what you need, right? It's still great. I still do it, and I'm fine, but it's still great. But maybe you can go into real estate, and it's less worry, less work, but you're increasing wealth at the same time. The online world, this is why I love it, and this is why all my clients get into it, and why things really work well, is because you can still grow your wealth while increasing your current income. And then at the end of the day, you're getting a big cash out, right? Now, one more kind of addition to this is this balance between the cash out and the cash you make today, they're very correlated. So if I want to pull a 6-figure salary and I want to make $100,000 a year while I do this and then cash out, that's $100,000 that could have gone into the business, overall increasing the value of everything, and my sale price would actually go up by probably more than $100,000 if I was good at what I did, which generally speaking is not tremendously challenging at that point. So if you want to eliminate this chunk, right, if you want to take out paying yourself today, you're just making this sales value exponentially bigger, right? Now, how do I explain this in simple terms? If you're making $1,000 a month in your online business, right? So I'm making $12K a year in my online business, and I'm happy with that. If I were to put that $1,000 a month more into ads that month, so I would have gotten more sales. Yes, I'm investing my profits into it, Well, eventually I'm going to get my sales to a level where if I stop advertising, I'm going to make $2,000 a month. So now the business is worth tremendously more, because a business generally sells from anywhere from, depending on the growth, online businesses 4 to 6 times their before tax earnings. So if my business is making $12,000 a year profit, right, that's worth $48,000 on the low end, right? That's what I'm talking about. This value all kind of comes into play. If it's still growing, it can be worth 6, right? There's lots of factors there. If there's a subscription, it can be worth way more if you have subscription-based payments. So that value here goes up dramatically, okay? That's what I'm talking about, guys. So this whole concept of wealth, cash, if you have cash, if you're sitting on cash right now, it doesn't take a lot of cash to increase your wealth. Do something with it. Don't just be sitting on cash, putting it in a savings account where you're getting, 3% right now is an amazing return rate in North America at least. So that shows how poor the market is, right? If it was like, way back when interest was 20%, I'd say, yeah, maybe you want to just put that in a bank. But it's not beneficial to leave our money in a bank. We have these crazy instruments called debt, right? We can actually take debt nowadays at a low interest rate, and we can actually turn this into something as well. So a lot of us do this with student loans. We take debt to go to school with the hopes of, having a future, right? Now, school is one of those interesting things. I live in Canada, so school's dramatically cheaper. It's not as expensive. It's, about $50,000, $60,000 to get your degree for 4 years. In the US, it's a lot more money. Now, you guys are taking debt. You guys are doing all these things, these huge gambles just to get a piece of paper that essentially only gets you an interview, right? Really, it only gets you an interview and a chance at making money in the future. Well, this is kind of an instrument where I can invest a lot less money, have a lot higher return in a very short period of time. So for those of you guys sitting at home, whether you're a student, whether you're, whatever, you guys should really start to consider about your actual wealth aspect and setting yourselves up for the future. Now, I know it sounds silly, right, the way I'm saying this, being a younger guy, but I take all of my money and I leave myself with very little cash. If I'm sitting on cash, I want to do something with it, because I know right now I don't need the cash. I'm in a fortunate position where I'm young and cash isn't really a big factor in my life yet. So I'm going to put all that in and increase my wealth. So I can put more in than the average person and increase my wealth even more, right? But if you only have a little to put in, you can't increase your wealth as much, but you can still increase your wealth. Now it's compounding. The longer you're willing to leave that money into something, the bigger your wealth compounds, right? Warren Buffett is a tremendous example of this. He didn't donate to charity for the longest time, and everyone got so mad at him for it, right? They're like, this guy is one of the richest people in the world. Why is he not donating to charity? Well, he was trying to explain to people, but they didn't understand this concept of wealth. So he said, guys, if you give me, if I take my billions of dollars and I keep them, I can actually increase my wealth a lot quicker and make a lot more money per year. And in 10 years, I'll have way more money to donate to charity. So he left all this money essentially in his wealth model, and he just left it in there to grow quicker and quicker and quicker. If he would have donated that money, he would have actually been able to donate way less over the length of his life. But now that he's donating, he has way more money to donate simply because of this exact same kind of concept, right? Instead of having 2 houses that you're buying real estate in, he had 20, let's say. So same thing, he's not making any more cash today, he's just paying off the mortgages, but when he cashes out, he's cashing out 20 houses instead of 2, right? So that's kind of the concept behind this, guys. So regardless of your age, regardless of your status in life right now, these are things you should be thinking about, right? Very easily for under $1,000, you can get the knowledge, you can start to invest in this, and there's a lot of sweat equity portions in there. So yes, $1,000, I'm not discrediting it, it can be a lot of money. You guys can figure out a way to get $1,000, you guys can figure out a way to increase your wealth. You don't need $1,000 to start today. $1,000 should be a realistic goal. You can still start these features up that cost $0, right? Facebook accounts cost $0. Email lists to build cost $0. They take time, they take effort, and money definitely speeds up the process that we can do this, but these are things that you should be doing now. So I hope that makes sense. Comment your thoughts on this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and let's start to shape our lives the way we want to shape them as we move forward. See you later, guys.